All right. We'll wait for a couple minutes here as everyone starts to trickle in, but thank you to everyone who is joining us on their afternoon or late morning, depending, I guess, on where you are. This is how to engage families around mental health for student success. I'm Mel Briner. I'm the VP of Marketing here at CampusESP, and I'm joined by a really exciting panel today, and we're going to dive in just a minute. So get yourself settled and we'll get started. All right. Seems to be leveling out, so I'm going to get started. The first couple of slides are mostly housekeeping, so any late arrivals will not miss too much. But like I said, thank you all for joining us. We're super excited about this topic. Unfortunately, we know it's a really important topic right now at a lot of campuses. So we're really just happy to be able to bring some people who are doing this really well to our community and have a really great open discussion around the needs that we see here for both our students and our families, and what some different institutions are doing to try and get the word out and best support everybody within their community. Just some logistics on how our Zoom webinars work. You are on mute and we cannot see you, unfortunately. That said, we really do want to hear what you have to say about this topic and encourage you to have questions for the panel. So during the event, please use the chat feature to either share your own thoughts or to start leaving some questions. Depending on what they are, we may address them in real time, but definitely at the end, we have a good chunk of time reserved to allow for questions so that we can kind of have a discussion here and answer any of the things that come up based on what our panel is sharing. And we are recording this session and we will send this to you tomorrow along with the deck that we're going to be walking through. So don't feel like you need to take too many notes or screenshots. If you want to share this with other people within your department or on campus, you will have all of these resources in your inbox tomorrow. And just in case you are not 100% familiar with CampusESP, I know we have some individuals joining us today that are not current customers. We are super excited to be working with about actually over 450 now institutions across the US and serving almost 10 million families, actually. I might need to update this slide soon. We are really just a family engagement platform, and our real goal is to help institutions like you better inform and educate and engage your families so that they can be the advisors that they really want to be for their students and facilitate their experience on campus and get them to that important commencement day. And Jacqui, if you want to go to that next slide, this is just a quick overview of what CampusESP really offers our partners. Yes, we are a SaaS platform. We are a tech piece. So you are getting software here, which allows for your portal and emails and SMS texting. But what really makes this a comprehensive solution is the team behind it. We have a lot of people who have worked in higher education, have been actual customers of CampusESP in the past, who can really be your consultants and help you through this process. We also have a really robust analytics and data platform that's coming with this so that you can see what is working, what your families need and want, and continue to hone your strategy as you improve. And that is literally as much as I'm going to say about our system right now. But if you do want to learn more moving forward, campusesp.com, our website, is a wealth of information. Our blog and resources area has a bunch of case studies and research that you can peruse at your leisure. It just gives you more information and some ideas on what you can do, whether you are a customer or you're doing things piecemeal on your own. And with that, we're going to get into the meat of our conversation here. And to do that, we're going to start by introducing the guests that I have joining me here today. I'm going to just introduce them first and each let them give a couple minutes of a little bit of background of themselves and what their role is on campus. So we're going to start with Sharon. Sharon Brownlow is the Director of Parent and Family Programs at Georgia Tech. Sharon, you want to say hi to everybody?
Yeah, hey everyone. As Melissa said, I am director here at Georgia Tech. I've been here for almost a year and was previously in higher ed and in the same role at another university in Georgia. Happy to be with you guys today.
Thank you, Sharon. And Sharon brought with her two people that she relies on a lot at Georgia Tech, who are the experts really when we talk about this mental wellness and health category. So first we have Joy Alexander, who's the Wellness Empowerment Director at Georgia Tech. Joy, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your role?
Hi, everyone. My name is Joy Alexander. I have the pleasure of serving as the director of the Wellness Empowerment Center here at Georgia Tech and the honor of working with Sharon and Andrew. My team focuses on public health, specifically prevention, and I've been at Georgia Tech for close to 6 years, and my background has been at other higher education institutions working in prevention work that's focused on health and wellness. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Troy. And also we are joined by Dr. Andrew Stochel, who is one of the psychologists and QPR coordinators at Georgia Tech. Andrew, you want to share a little bit about your role?
Absolutely. So I'm a staff psychologist. Hopefully, all of you are familiar with QPR. That is our suicide prevention trainings that we offer on campus. I oversee also our suicide prevention programming. I'll be talking a little bit later about our QPR and kind of how we wed that and connected it with our parents.
Wonderful. Super excited for you both to be here and provide like just a very in-depth perspective on this topic that is so important to those that are more directly serving our parents and family members. And moderating most of this conversation is not going to be me, but my esteemed colleague and friend, Jacqui, who is on our customer success team here at CampusESP. Jacqui, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here with you all today. Like Mel said, I'm a manager of customer success. I've been with the Campus ESP team for a little over 3 years. Before that, I was working in higher ed and student affairs in several different functional areas. But I'm really excited to be here on the Campus ESP side of things, especially for this conversation today with my fellow Georgians. So I live down the road just a little outside of Savannah. So excited to be here with you guys.
All right, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jacqui, and she's going to take us through some different pieces here of content, and then we'll get into really what Georgia Tech is doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Mel. All right, so Mel is going to launch a poll in the webinar here to see what you all are currently doing to share mental health topics and resources with families. So I will give you all a second to respond to that poll.
I'm going to come in here as the voice of God, kind of, because I've realized over the years now that I'm the only one who can see the count going up of the respondents until I hit a certain button. So you're all just sitting here waiting in silence and bated breath. But we do have most people participating now. So I am going to click end on this, and then you all should be able to see the results now. Is that true?
Yes.
All right, Jacqui, you can take it back.
Amazing. Awesome. So we're seeing that the majority of folks are creating posts or emailing, highlighting campus-specific mental health resources, hosting webinars or Q&As with campus staff on mental health, and really a lot of folks responding to really all of these in a good variety and offering a web page for families that covers campus mental health resources. So thank you all for participating in the poll, and you'll see through our conversation today and the results that we've seen through research and the stuff that the Georgia Tech team is going to share that really aligns with what we see as best practices and what really works well and hits home with families. So excited to share more. All right, so there is no shortage of news covering the mental health crisis that college students are currently facing, not to mention the state of the mental health of college faculty and staff as well. So we are seeing that students are really turning to their family and friends, to online therapy, and honestly, love it or hate it, TikTok psychologists for support. And while these additional resources are certainly helping relieve some of the burden that our on-campus counselors and those counseling centers are feeling to meet that demand to support college student mental health, we know that those counselors, the social workers, the psychologists and psychiatrists on campus are most likely to be the best possible resources for the students to get the help they need. So turning it over to the Georgia Tech team, how do you all see this college student mental health crisis impacting your Georgia Tech students, their retention, their persistence, and their success at college and beyond?
I'm going to let my friends in the two mental health areas address this one first, since they are kind of the primary, first responders, if you will.
I'll say, just from our perspective, I think this generation of college students is coming in with more expectations. Specifically, not just I am struggling with depression, but I am struggling with depression and need help, right? And so they are looking to engage. They are much more, I had the word before, they're much more savvy about mental health, or at least savvy enough to know that they want something, they want help, right? Yes, people are looking on social media and other places for help and diagnoses, which is not good, but they're looking, right? And that is a positive. And so we try to meet them where they are. We also try and, set expectations too, with some of the stuff, right? Not every concentration problem is ADHD.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely seen that shift, Andrew, of we now have a broader and shared language around mental health. And so just from my own experience when I was in college, like knowing that I had anxiety and struggled with things, but not that second part of it of, and I need help. So I think you're obviously the expert, and I see that as well, as students now have that language to identify and admit when they need help. Joy, what do you think here?
Yeah, I think the transition from high school to college has always been challenging for college students, truthfully. I think I would be remiss to not acknowledge what the COVID-19 pandemic has caused within this challenge that has magnified the issue, right? And so I think understanding many things that are taking place within our Generation Z students and why what they are experiencing that might cause anxiety and depression. I think that has a lot to do with the reporting of it. I also agree and believe that the stigma that comes with mental health, it's still there, but yet people are more vocal about talking about it and being able to know that they are not alone. And so I think the more that we start normalizing the importance of having dialogue around mental health, the more individuals will be able to seek support and not feel that they have to struggle in isolation and loneliness.
Absolutely. And families are a huge part of that, right? So when we really boil it down, students are stressed, families want to help, and students want their families to help. So Sharon, Joy, Andrew, how does Georgia Tech specifically partner with families to support students' mental health?
Yeah, I think we try to have a little bit of a multi-pronged approach to it, of course. I think that, just knowing that really the first entrance on campus, the main entrance on campus is through orientation. So we definitely have a variety of ways to speak to families specifically about this there. And I make sure to, give them kind of some broad strokes of what we're going to be offering, but then letting them know that we're going to give them things along the timeline exactly when they need them. And so, we kind of hat tip to a few of those things, knowing that, your student is going to come in and it's going to be really magical feeling for a little while, but then there's going to be a significant dip in that magic. It's not going to feel as maybe even as welcoming. And so we want to make sure along the way that, one, your student knows where to go, but two, you know how to nudge your student where to go, because we want to be able to have such a great partnership. And so we want to provide really just awareness in general, and then in those specific times and places that's needed. And so I just appreciate these two specifically on this campus because, and I can't take any credit to this. This was here before I got here, but being able to have these webinars on QPR several times a year at critical points has been so helpful. Some nights, Andrew and I sit there and we have 80 people in the room online, and then sometimes it's 4. But we know that no matter how many people are in those spaces, it's really important to share that information. So yeah, and then we, along with those live moments, we have behind that some articles and newsletters that filter into our online platform at just the right time. Again, thanking these folks for working with us on it. So I will be quiet and let them say the other things.
Yeah, Joy, Andrew, anything to add here?
Yeah, I think part of this is building off of that orientation. On our campus, we call it Facet. But right, that is really our first kind of face and interaction with parents. And then from there, we're kind of interfacing with all these other things, right? Whether it's us volunteering, Sharon didn't mention it, but she said off camera, we've got parent and family weekend coming up. And so, having tables and being present. One of the nice things we also have is we have a very strong communications team. And so sometimes that lifting and that, sharing of information is done by them, right? It's hard sometimes for us clinicians to be everywhere, but, they're able to see the opportunities to work with Sharon on, the avenues so that this information is getting to parents.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean,
Joy,
I
sorry.
think they covered it. I was about to say ditto to what all of them have said.
Love
Jacqui,
it.
I see we've got a couple questions. Do you want me to answer those real quick?
I think Mel is monitoring the chat and maybe saving some things for the end.
Got it.
We can jump in on the chat. Lisa Perez asked, are those webinars offered as live stream or publicized on campus? So about the QPR webinars.
Yeah, we definitely use CampusESP to advertise those webinars. They are live but not recorded. So we do ask people to register in advance for QPR because we, one, don't want it to get to be too many people in that digital space, and we want to protect the privacy of that conversation. But Andrew has been an amazing partner with offering he put together a sort of the word's not coming. But anyway, essentially, like, we post a presentation that he has recorded just of himself talking through QPR and giving some of the basics of that. It's not necessarily a training, but it's thoughts about this topic so that families can review, but it's not live.
Amazing. And then Eva asks, how do you advertise the webinars in order to get interest?
Through CampusESP specifically. Yep.
We'd love to hear it. Awesome. Well, jumping into some more stats and trends that we see here. All of these stats here are really showing that most students feel stressed, anxious, and worried pretty much all of the time. Just looking at this slide makes me anxious and stressed. So I'm sure this kind of gives us all a headache, but also inspires us to do the really important work of addressing these mental health issues that our students are facing, and of course, helping their families support their students as well. So you might be wondering, what are students so stressed about? And we have seen through the research and data that the majority of students are stressed about peer pressure, keeping up with classes, their own mental health. So they're stressed about being stressed, which is just a fun cycle to be in, right? They're stressed about their own safety, and then reaching out when they need help. So a little bit what we were talking about earlier. So students are still stressed about that, but of course, hopefully now they have more of that language to kind of raise their hand and say, hey, I need help. None of this is probably shocking to anyone on this webinar, but it's always nice to have those hard numbers to back up those day-to-day interactions and kind of anecdotes that we hear from students when they're telling us what they're stressed about directly. Joy and Andrew, what are the most common themes that you see with your Georgia Tech students? Does it kind of align line with this, or are you seeing different trends on campus?
I would say nationwide, which is somewhat similar, for the mental health people in the audience, right? We probably know depression is number one, anxiety is a close number two. Relationships is actually a surprising number three. A lot of students come in and talk about their relationships. Unique to our campus, right? So I can't generalize to others. There is a lot of academic pressure. Georgia Tech has a reputation on being a very hard, very challenging, very success-driven place. And that's something our students grapple with. A lot of our students, really smart, really bright, they're coming from being big fish in a small pond. Now there's a big pond. They might still be a bigger fish, but it's a little harder. And so I think our students are kind of working through that. And so that's actually a major theme that we work with students, is how to understand that, how to understand failure, right? The path to success is not always a straight line.
Yeah, I would agree. I think also stress shows up in different ways. One thing about Georgia Tech that's very unique is our international population and students. And so understanding what it feels like to move to an entire new country and have to acclimate to the demand and the pressure that is not your native country can be stressful. So I think understanding that is something that makes Georgia Tech unique, in addition to what Andrew mentioned with the rigor. And so when you think about all of those strategies and all of those things that come into play to being a student, oftentimes students come to Georgia Tech because they want the experience in the classroom, but they're also very bright. And sometimes when you're so bright, you often did not have to utilize the same skills that you have to utilize now at Georgia Tech through your education with K through 12. And so I think that can also be another stressor, because we often have valedictorians and students that were very much top of their class, and now often are having to learn how to study, and they've never had to study before coming to Georgia Tech, or have to learn time management, and they've never had to manage their time before Georgia Tech. So I think all of those pieces really do show up and cause students additional stress.
Absolutely. So Sharon,
And,
how do you see, sorry, Joy, did you
oh,
want to?
I was just going to tie it back to parents too, is that also, right, so successful, there's a lot of pride in them coming here and doing well. And so managing the expectations of parents, right? We've got parents of all different parenting styles, and but I think that adds an extra pressure, right? Because there's a sense of honor here, and then however the parents feel about that, maybe adding or increasing some of that pressure.
Absolutely. Yeah, Sharon, can you touch a little bit on how these trends and kind of what students are most stressed about, how that overlaps or maybe differs from what families are worried about when it comes to their student?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to Joy's piece, national, but also just the, distance, even, nationally. That's something that I felt like I absorbed over the summer, and speaking with families when they would come to our facet sessions, and, it's almost like they couldn't get through the leap of, I'm not going to see my kid every day, and so we do talk a lot about that, on the onboarding. But yeah, that's a stress that I think is that that trusting themselves, that they have done what all they can do, and how do they transition their support? How do they transition, their day-to-day practices with their student? And so I think just kind of, again, leading them along with what it will be most helpful, but also I think helping them understand what is normal and natural, and doing a lot of validating. You probably will be feeling this, and that's okay, but here's how you might respond to that feeling. And so, yes, absolutely. I think the distance is hard. I think the time management, again, like thinking, okay, I know my student is this way. Will they be able to do X, Y, Z when they get there? And so just that whole like knowing how to approach those questions when you get them is big for us. But yeah, so preventing panic, setting expectations. But yes, they are very stressed out about the distance, and the if there's an emergency, how do I know and feel good that the people at this campus are going to take care of my child when I am so far away?
Yeah, that's a perfect segue going into how often our students are talking with their families if they're not seeing each other every day. And the vast majority of students are talking to their families maybe at least several times a week, if not at least once a day. Again, I know I called my mom probably every day that I was away at college, and I went to school really far away from home too. So I definitely fall into this trend. And so today's families are just an absolute integral part of our students' day-to-day lives, even if they are far away in distance. They're still talking, texting, FaceTiming at least once a day for the most part, and really have a huge influence in their students' lives, even from a distance. We see that this frequency of talking with families and communication between students and their families increases with our Black, Hispanic, and low-income families as well. So making sure that we're really serving these additional populations that we know tend to need even more support, and meeting those families where they're at too. All right, and then you all mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it's important to give families easy access to the information. And so from our research, we know that families know what information is important and they also know where to find it. But mental health support resources is one of those topics that families by and large know is important, but they don't know where to find it. So making this information really easily accessible and easy to find is a huge piece of making sure that families are getting that information, and being able to support their students with it. And so looking at where mental health falls in terms of how interested families are in those topics, we did some research earlier this year into the highest engagement that we saw on content in CampusESP platforms. For current families, mental health was the second most clicked on topic. And so drilling down into some additional populations and institutional types, it was a huge topic for our HSIs as well. Across the board, this topic is important, but if you are at an HSI, or an emerging HSI, or just generally have a high Hispanic population at your institution, mental health should definitely be on that top priority of engaging your families. All right. And so Sharon, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about Georgia Tech's commitment to prevention and intervention through student engagement and well-being.
Sure. Andrea, if you don't mind, would you mind muting your microphone? We hear your awesome notes that you're taking. You're good. No, that's cool. Yes, and Joy maybe will speak to this better because again, I've only been at Tech for about a year, and I can speak to the experience that I had when I came in, realizing that the importance that our division in our area took. We are called student engagement and well-being, so we aren't called student affairs. Those kinds of things. We really have this divisional or area umbrella, if you will, that really speaks to the well-being piece. And so I'll use Joy. She was the one that brought this to our attention, Georgia Tech's commitment to prevention and intervention. So, and I'll let both of them, because I think one piece goes with Andrew and one piece goes with Joy. But overall, just, kind of to my colleague's point, Georgia Tech is really, really rigorous. We have students who are here and serious about their academics, but maybe they have not yet been met with some of this rigor before. And so they're getting here and they're really letting letting a lot of this wash over them. It's really hard for them to digest at times. And so basically this is Georgia Tech's response, is, hey, we recognize it. We want to make sure it's a priority. We want to make sure that students have what they need and families continue to be involved, informed, and invested in the experience. So with that, I will allow my colleagues to, if they have anything else on that, because again, it's still kind of new to me here. But I thought it was really neat coming into the Institute, seeing that this was literally the wording, and that it's such a big priority.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. So, I think the goal of trying to centralize well-being was very intentional, truthfully, because I think what Georgia Tech found out is that we struggled in the space of well-being in regards to supporting students. And so with that, the creation of student engagement and well-being was formed to really allow us to work together to say, how are we engaging with our students? How are we ensuring that they feel supported and valued despite the rigor? And so not only was the division or cabinet area of well-being, student engagement, well-being created, it was also embedded within the Institute's strategic plan, which was really big for Georgia Tech, to be honest, because that showed their 10-year commitment to well-being. And truthfully, it was the first time that it had ever been a part of their strategic plan. And so I think there is a level of commitment, but also accountability to say, what are we doing to support students, not only regarding their mental health, but holistically? How are we supporting them to promote wellness so that they not only thrive in the classroom, but also personally and professionally?
Amazing. Thank you. And Joy, I think you're up next, along with Sharon, to talk a little bit more about your specific area, the Wellness Empowerment Center, and what you all do and how you help support that piece of Georgia Tech's strategic plan.
Yeah, you want me to start, Sharon, or you want to? Okay. So my department, I often think of my department as a piece of a puzzle, truthfully, that all work together to ensure that we are supporting students. And so my piece of the puzzle is really focused on prevention. And so when you think about students and you think about the ability to ensure that we are providing strategies and skills that often are embedded into life skills that they can utilize, it will reduce the crisis and intervention that students experience the earlier we start with exposing them to this material. And so with that, within the Institute, they have adopted the 8 dimensions of wellness. And so every institution often has different dimensions and different numbers. There's 6, there's 8, there's 10, there's 12. Truthfully, I'm not here to tell you one is right or wrong. I'm here to tell you that we follow the 8 dimensions of wellness. And what that is that we try to ensure that the programs and services we offer are related to each of these dimensions, right? So when you think about mental health would follow into the emotional dimension, right? Being able to support them, making sure that they feel supported and validated, but also understanding that their mental health also impacts other dimensions of wellness, and how that shows up for them is really important as well. And so what we do is that we provide a number of programs and services for students. One thing that we do that is unique in the state of Georgia is that we are the only institution out of the public institutions in the state of Georgia that require all of our incoming students to take an online module focused on mental well-being. And so that is very intentional because we want to get this information about mental well-being to students before they arrive to campus. And so they get this information before they arrive that also allows them to know what mental well-being is, the benefits of it, but also informs them of the resources that are available on campus if they find themselves in need and need support. So that's just an example of how we try to be as proactive as possible. In addition, we utilize social media to do a lot of health communication messages around different topics to allow them to know that whatever it is that they're dealing with, there are resources. We do care, we do value them, and try to destigma seeking support. But we could not do what we do without collaboration and partnership. We often partner with the Center for Mental Health Care and Resource when it comes to Suicide Prevention Week, when it comes to different initiatives that are available, in addition to many other campus partners, to really make sure that we don't own wellness. Wellness is collectively should be shared at this institute. And so trying to make sure that we share our resources with Sharon, with parents and families is really important, because we do know that oftentimes if we can get to those families to get that information, they can communicate that to their students. And so that is kind of a brief overview of what we do to try to be proactive when it comes to mental health and many other resources to support students' wellness.
Yeah, I'm not letting you off the hook just yet. If you could
Okay.
a little bit down into some of the specific programmings that you offer with
Awesome.
WC.
Yes. So we identify our work based upon pillars, which really just is how we focus our work. And so when it comes to the pillars of the work, we have health educators. So my team is multidisciplinary. So all of them have different backgrounds. We have health education pillars. Those individuals are trained in public health. And so they do a lot of the outreach, a lot of the awareness, a lot of the events. But we also reach students where they are. So we understand that students aren't going to come to us if we don't go to them first. And so a lot of the outreach that we do is outside of our space, and making sure that if it's a residence hall, if it's a fraternity or sorority, we go to a lot of classrooms and do presentations with students to make sure that they understand not only our service, but other resources that are available to support them while they are here. We also have our voice unit, which is our sexual violence advocacy and response. And so we have 2 advocates that support students. They are licensed in social work. And so when it comes to sexual violence, which we use an umbrella of stalking, domestic violence, or sexual assault or harassment. Within that, those advocates, we have a very unique model, because those advocates are available 24/7, 365 days. So they are never off. And with that model, they are in person. So they actually do come to campus to support students no matter the time, no matter the day. I know that's unique, and that's something that we really cherish, because what we have found is that when students have experienced a traumatic event, no matter what it is, they often want someone to be there to support them. And so that advocate really helps them throughout the entire process to not allow what happened to them to define their success at Georgia Tech. And so they absolutely support them no matter what it is, and making sure that they feel that they can continue on. We also have dietitians in my camp that are supporting students, whether that's they want to learn nutrition basics, maybe they have disordered eating patterns or a diagnosed eating disorder. So they can reach the plethora when it comes to nutrition, but also body image is something that incoming students struggle with, and also compare themselves to others on what they should look like. And so with that, we really try to focus on a holistic model with that, and being able to ensure that everybody, every shape, every size is included, instead of trying to create parameters that cause students to feel that they have to look a certain way. It's more of an intuitive eating model of how do you feel, how does your body feel when you're eating certain foods, instead of restricting certain foods, especially as I mentioned, because of our international population. how dare us come in and tell them that they can't eat their cultural foods that are really important to them, that often find comfort, and allow them to connect with their home. And so with that, it is a different model than often students are used to, and providing a very restrictive of this is what you can and cannot have. They are not the food police, even though sometimes students want to think that they are not within that space. And so they do a number of outreach as well. They do grocery store tours, they do cooking demonstrations. They do a lot of different types of outreach to allow students to know that they are available to support them individually, but also collectively.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to talk to us a little bit about the Center for Mental Health Care and Resources and the QPR training.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you can see on our campus, we have a very fancy name. Anywhere else, we're the counseling center. But why we chose that name is also to show that we are kind of the one-stop shop on our campus for mental health needs, right? And services. What we've done is to kind of create, a multi-level of care so that students can come to us and then be directed to individual counseling groups. Some people just need some case management. Some people need psychiatry or referrals. And so thus our fancy name. And so those are some of the things, to address the early slides that we're doing. But one of the initiatives that we do is, again, around suicide prevention. Hopefully I'm talking to a bunch of student affairs professionals, and you all know QPR if I mention that. If you're not, it's a nationally recognized format for increasing awareness about suicide and building comfort talking about it. We take that and we kind of techify it, with some of our information. And historically, right, we were serving our students, our faculty and staff with this. But one of the things we noticed that we were not kind of covering was our parents, right? It was a missed audience. And so we worked with parent and family programming to extend that to them, right? So that they can have this information. People were asking if we do this live or if we do this, recorded. One of the things why we do it live is this really creates an opportunity for parents to talk about things, right? Suicide is a topic people have feelings about, right? And so not only do we want to provide information, but this creates an avenue for them to talk about things, share feelings, learn, right, through dialogue. And sometimes we have really good conversations on a tough topic that we don't always find a clean answer to, but we have a good conversation about it. It also allows, as you can see, usually myself or one of our staff leads it. And so they have that opportunity to also interface with our center, right? They're talking to a licensed mental health professional. Certainly questions branch off about our services. And so we can kind of, use that as an opportunity to address that and help parents be aware. The other things too, we talk about and why it, we try and custom tailorize it to parents is a little bit about their role, right? We recognize parents are doing so much for their students. But sometimes when it comes to talking about mental health or suicide, it requires them to change things, or sometimes we have to lower our defenses, right? Parents, they have a tough job. I mean, I'm a father, but right, there's so much that we do. And if we get, into one box focusing on our student, sometimes it's really hard to listen or to have them see that we're listening, right? They see us in a certain way. And so those are kind of the things that we talk about unique to parents is how to approach their student, right? The student that feels unheard so that they can feel heard and can receive help. And so we spend time, and then we also have, Sharon and her staff there, who also provide some of the other services and education to our staff.
Amazing. Yeah. Andrew, I'm curious, what has been, and I'm hoping there has been some impact kind of coming full circle of extending this QPR training to families and then seeing more students, kind of raise their hand and say, I'm struggling, I need help. And maybe that their parent or family member who attended one of your trainings was the one who referred them to you. Tell me a little bit about that.
I wish I could connect the dot there. I don't know that there is, but, part of suicide prevention is really about increasing the safety net.
Yeah.
And so by having parents, having them feel comfortable talking about suicide, we're adding to that net. Hopefully, parents are using this, and whether talking about suicide or mental health, that they are addressing it. But I wish I had that kind of direct connection.
No, that's totally fine. Thank you. Sharon, could you tell us a little bit about your role in helping Andrew and Joy as well, kind of promote these pieces and programs and resources out to families?
Sure. Yeah. I think we just try to be intentional about, again, kind of what's going on in the pulse of the semester and the term. And we just get with Andrew and his team or Andrew and whoever he would like to tap in from his team to figure out where do we feel like in the cadence of the semester, these couple of QPR sessions. We usually try to do 2 or 3 a semester. And then as far as Joy, kind of something neat that it really wasn't totally planned. And I love things that are planned, and I love things that just kind of unfold in front of you. And you're like, wow, that just sort of happened. I love that. We were learning about these dimensions. We were in a kind of a calendar planning meeting with other folks across campus, and someone from housing said, hey, we really need something in October to fulfill the dimension of wellness for emotional. And so as we got to thinking about it, we were like, hey, well, we've got family weekend. Is there something that we could kind of overlay together? And so there's some magic happened. We were already planning something called Yoga in the Yard. It's coming up next Saturday morning for family weekend. And so we are inviting families to come out. But we said, what if we also invited students who maybe their families aren't coming to family weekend and they want to feel a little just Georgia Tech family love? And so we're doing hydration and hugs and high fives after and during the yoga session. So come enjoy, be mindful, be in the presence or be in the moment, be present with the families that are here, even if yours isn't. And so that was just sort of a serendipitous thing, but I think it came from being a part of campus and going out to these meetings, figure out who's doing what, make connections, making sure you're just as a person that is in charge of families and in that engagement and leveraging it. How can your campus partners, how do you fill in the gaps for each other? How do you complement one another? So those are some ideas we have.
I love that. Such an awesome moment of just the universe aligning and something beautiful coming of it. So that's really great. Sounds like it's going to be awesome. So now just want to kind of go through some broader questions with you all. And Andrew, Sharon, Joy, please feel free to chime in any order and popcorn it around as we approach our wrap up here today. So how do you all make sure that families are getting the information that they need? And I know, Sharon, you'll probably be the first one to answer here.
Sure. Yeah. And I think we've kind of collectively throughout this event talked a little bit about it, but, we really just want to build relationships with our families, as they enter campus via admissions visit, then orientation visits, and really start to collect how we can reach back out to them. And then how do we fold in our campus partners to that? How do we say, hey, how do we kind of look at a year and say, once a month or twice a month or however many times a semester, do you feel like we could work together on something? And the level of what that activity looks like. Is it something in person that we do during family weekend? Is it, a variety of webinars that we've done? So Joy and I've, obviously Andrew and I've talked a lot about the QPR, but we also do something called What's Buzzin', and that's just really about 2 to 3 times a month as well, where we sync up with campus partners to just have a conversation and really just like Joy was highlighting her dimensions of wellness and really just overall what her area provides for students, making parents aware of that. So we link up, we advertise that time, again, through CampusESP. So letting people know, hey, we've got this webinar. We'd love for you to come. And I would say in the difference between that and QPR, we record it. And if people can't come, just like we're doing today, right? Hey, sign up, cool. If you can't make it, that's okay. We're going to push out that recording. And so that's really the emphasis there is making sure that we can kind of highlight at times that aren't already stressful for families. We don't want to give them too much at orientation. We want to let them know things are coming. And so that's kind of the exciting part, is to share the broad strokes and then say, hey, you're going to be hearing from us, and these are the things that you're going to be hearing to sign up for and be a part of. So that's kind of my overall spiel on that.
Amazing. And I'm going to toss it over to Joy, because I know Georgia Tech and Sharon and your unit really uses Campus ESP, but Joy, you all have a specific newsletter from your area as well, that I know is student facing, but of course families are invited to join and receive that too. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we do a monthly newsletter to highlight each dimension of wellness that is shared collectively throughout campus. And so, as Sharon mentioned, October is emotional wellness. And so we give a highlight about what is emotional wellness, why is it important, but we also share what we have going on campus for the month of October within those pillar areas to support emotional wellness, which I think is really important, because what it does is that it allows the reader to ensure that they not only understand emotional wellness, but that they also know how we are supporting it. So our newsletter is open to students and families. We don't restrict it to only students, because as I mentioned, if the families get that information, it's extremely valuable for them to share. In addition to social media, we utilize, I know oftentimes we still have a Facebook page because of families, truthfully, because we know often Generation Zs are using Instagram and TikTok and many other places. And we have chose to keep our Facebook to ensure that our families still know what we have going on. So that was very intentional as well, to give families different methods to utilize if they want to know what we have going on in our area. And then I collaborate with campus partners to do different webinars and videos, as Sharon has highlighted, to showcase what we're doing and to share on their platforms, such as Campus ESP.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue. And as we think about where families are most engaged and how they want to receive the information, by and large, we know that families like to receive email communication. We do see a growing preference from our Black, Hispanic, first gen, and lower income families for texting, so that SMS capability too. Georgia Tech actually just recently launched their SMS feature within Campus ESP. So Sharon, can you talk to us a little bit about how you're leveraging that kind of variety of communication tools to meet those different populations that make up your students and families?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, we sort of are just getting our feet wet a little bit with texting, but it's been really great to be able to kind of start this semester with it, talk to campus partners about it and say, hey, how will this, how do you see this working in your world, if so? And we really actually had a lot of participation from our Greek life community. And so reaching out about recruitment and all those different things. And so that has gotten a really good response. I think that there were just so many pieces to that, like 3 or 4 day window that recruitment was happening. And I mean, I think we can all talk about how that is a stressful time for a student if they're going through that process. That is a lot of mental health, things to think about. And so I really enjoyed that they took us up on that opportunity to say, hey, today is day 1 and here's what's going on. And here are conversations you can have with your student, but all in a really tiny text message. So just a quick, here you go. Here's you're equipped for the day right here in the palm of your hand. So that's something that has worked really well so far this term. And we're looking forward. We've got some texting that's obviously associated with family weekend and all the different things. But and we just we're sort of still laying it out with our campus partners, but we really just try to look at how many announcements are we sending, how many posts and how many text messages, and really what does that cadence look like, and making sure that we're not sending an overwhelming amount, but that we're sending it just the right time, just the right audience.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Greek life. My husband works in fraternity and sorority life at another college here in Georgia, so that is always top of mind for us. Definitely a stressful time for our Greek litter organization members. All right. And so, Joy, can you talk a little bit about the different topics that you think are most important and impactful when talking to families about supporting their students' mental health? And we have some examples here of different pieces of content that have been posted out to Georgia Tech's Campus ESP platform. So I pose this question to Joy, but open to the entire panel here.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to ways to support families to better their students' well-beings, I think it's important that one, they know about the resources because what you don't know, you often can't refer, right? And so I think knowledge is power. And so making sure that they are knowledgeable about the resources that are available at the campus that their student is attending is extremely important. But I also think understanding the resources is one piece, but also creating an environment to check in with students and normalizing that every day will not be a good day for a student. And just because it's not a good day does not mean that it won't be better days, right? And so being able to really listen to the student and listen to understand and not respond or compare, I think is really important as well, because oftentimes with Georgia Tech students, their parents or their siblings might have went to Georgia Tech. And so what they're experiencing, they could easily say, well, this person went through it and they were okay, so you will be okay too. They are not that person. They are not that student. And so being able to really understand what they're saying. And sometimes it's not always about a response. This is just about an ear and being able to just listen and allow them to know that you are there to support them no matter what they are experiencing is really, really important because we know that there's different phases and times of the year that can be extremely stressful for students. It's midterm time for students here. And so we know that it's stressful because oftentimes they have multiple exams. And so trying to manage expectations, but also study, but also try to get sleep is challenging because of the demands. And so making sure that you normalize to ask them, how are they doing first before how are their grades, right? How are you doing? How are you feeling, right? Is really important. And it seems very simple, but it can make a world of difference because when individuals know that you care about them and you care about their well-being, then I think they'll be more open and be honest about what they're experiencing. But I can also pass it off to my colleagues as well.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut anyone off, but I know we are close to time and Zoom does not really allow for a graceful end to these webinars. So I do want to wrap us up and I'm just going to zoom past some of these final slides here. Like we mentioned, we will be including the slides in our follow-up, so you will be able to walk through these, see some great examples from some other Campus ESP partners that we have, some best practices as well. But with the few minutes we have left, I don't see too much going on in the Q&A or the chat, but does anyone have any questions? We cannot see you like Mel mentioned, so feel free to put some things in the chat. All right, and seeing none, thanks, Mindy and Caitlin. Caitlin Borges asks, do you offer any other trainings for families about depression and anxiety?
Not specifically. We saw a target with suicide prevention and went for it. There could be opportunities to expand that.
I'll say one last thing, if that's okay. I will see if it cuts me off, but we do partner with a mediation unit that is not a part of Georgia Tech. So it's something that's outside, it's an outside vendor. So we try to equip families with knowing, again, that relationships are stressful, that's sometimes interlaid with mental health. So helping and equipping them with ways to talk to their student during those times. We also do that.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, before Zoom cuts me off, lots of ways to learn more about Campus ESP, whether it's through our learning series, our newsletter, or booking a demo if you're not a customer yet. So please take advantage of all these opportunities. And thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. I'll be in Atlanta tomorrow, so I'll wave to y'all from the highway on my way through Atlanta. All right. Thank you, everyone.